Welcome to the Rensselaer County Regional Chamber of Commerce Connect with Careers Week, our spring 2022 edition. I'm Kate Manley, president of the Chamber and your host for this virtual career exploration series. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this spring edition, Martin Electric, Mosaic Associates Architects, and WB Games New York. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Amanda Vottis, architectural designer, and Callie Gaspary, principal, both at Mosaic Associate Architects. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're so thrilled to have you here today. And I think we're in for a real treat because we'll get perspectives of part of the pathway of being an architect. So this is really exciting. So first, for our students, can you tell us a little bit about Mosaic and what you all do as a company?
Sure, absolutely. So at Mosaic, we're an architecture firm. We are over 150 years old. And we focus almost exclusively on educational spaces. So whether it's a pre-K through grade 12 school or college and university, our passion is really for learning environments. So much so that Amanda and I actually took some courses at San Diego State University to become accredited learning environment planners. So we know a little bit about teaching and learning and community engagement and how that can impact the design of learning environments.
That's really exciting. And I bet some of our students are sitting in some of the spaces that you designed or have worked on, which is really neat too. So as you sit in your classrooms, perhaps this is something that you see every single day. So as on a daily basis, your titles are architectural designer and principal. What do you do in those roles on a daily basis? So I'll start with whomever wants to jump in first.
Sure, I'll go first. So yes, our roles are very different. As you move up into management, like I have, you do less and less architecture. I'm still involved, but more overseeing everybody. So my day to day is a lot of running the business, doing finance and things like that, but then also staying involved. I do stay involved in all of my projects and oversee the teams that are running them.
That's terrific.
And so like Callie mentioned, my day looks a little bit different. I'm more project based. And so one of the things I love about my job is that every day is different depending on what phase of the project you're in. So in the early stages, if we're doing educational planning, we may be talking to the stakeholders at the school. So the students, the teachers, the community members, the administration, really trying to get a feel for what makes the school special. What does the school want to be in the future? As we move into design, maybe out in the field, taking measurements of the spaces that we're going to renovate, or researching old scans of the building to see, what's in those walls that I can't see, and then programming those spaces for their new use. So you may be taking a bunch of classrooms and turning them into a more student-based center that's more open and collaborative and going with the new educational trends. And then when you get into construction, you're out in the field, you're watching the new spaces get built, which I absolutely love. You get to see it torn down and it turns into a completely new space. And then getting to see the end users really enjoy the product and the part that, the piece that they've helped make. They've given input along the way, we've gotten their feedback, and now they actually get to see the space that they had a part in designing.
And how awesome to see these spaces come to fruition, like from a concept from those initial stages all the way to the physical building and those learning spaces. So that's really exciting. So for both of you, I'll ask, what did your personal pathway look like? How did you get from maybe as a student in middle school or high school to where you are now? Was this always a dream or goal? Or perhaps we've talked a lot about with some of our guests that, it's not always a straight path and you might try some things along the way or have different interests. So what was that like for both of you, your pathway?
For me, it actually was a pretty straight path with a little bump in the road. So I've known I wanted to be an architect since third grade.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I always loved playing with my Legos and designing my ideal home. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. Honestly, I'm not sure at that time I really understood what an architect did, but I made up my mind and I decided I was going to go to RPI, and I just followed those dreams all the way through. So that's what I did. I went to RPI for architecture, and came out. The firm that I interned with during school didn't have enough work to take on a full-time employee. So I started looking around, ended up at Mosaic, and the bump I talked about was it's not actually a bump, but I did leave for a short time. I left Mosaic to try something different. I went to a firm that did high-end residential homes.
Okay.
And it was a really great experience, but it wasn't a good fit for me. So I did come back to Mosaic, but one thing I can say, and advice to the students, I don't regret it for a minute. Leaving and experiencing something different was one of the best things that I did. And now I'm back running the company, so it looks like it all worked out.
It looks like it worked out. And sometimes it's like we find out what we don't want to do as much as what we do want to do. So even though, it's great to do high-end residential homes, your passion clearly seems to be with the schools and the learning environment. So it's okay to realize that that wasn't something you didn't want to do. So
exactly.
Amanda, how about you?
Unlike Callie, I did not know what I wanted to do in third grade. I barely knew what I wanted to do when I was a senior. I started working when I was 14 though. I had the opportunity to do a student ambassador trip to Australia and New Zealand, and I've always wanted to travel. And so I started working and was able to pay for some other trips through the school, and got to travel a lot in high school through those programs and see a lot of the world, which was amazing. And so I knew, I appreciated the architecture. I loved seeing all of the different things that the different countries had to offer. And, when you leave your home and you see a new country, especially if you go to Europe, it's just like hundreds of years, thousands of years of history that we don't have here. And it was just eye-opening. And so going to college was kind of like, I don't know, what do I want to do? And, talking to my parents, they're like, well, you like to travel, you like art, you're good at science and math, like maybe architecture is a fit for you. I was like, maybe, I'll check it out. And so that was actually the path that I ended up going, and going to school and trying it out. It was a good fit for me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a little less direct than Callie's, but just kind of combining the things that I was good at and the things that I liked to see what majors took those into account. And I, got to travel with the architecture program in college. And that was one of the big things that they feature, because they want to give you more exposure to other places. And so it's worked out for me.
That's excellent. So on a daily basis, what skills do both of you use in your jobs?
So I think, there are the technical skills, of course. We use AutoCAD and Revit for drawing programs. We're measuring and things like that. There's the real nuts and bolts. We're doing a lot of research. But I think, one of the most important things, one of the skills that we're looking for is more of those soft skills. Being self-motivated and having the ability to kind of work independently is really important in our industry. Our projects, especially with schools, they take a really long time. So being able to assign different things to different people and sending them off to be able to work on their own for a little bit and then come back together and collaborate as a team, in addition to all those kind of technical skills, that's really important. And it really is a large part of our day and our projects.
I think I would add to Callie, she mentioned collaboration. A lot of what we do is collaborating within the office with our project teams, talking to product vendors, talking to contractors, talking to our clients, and getting the input and the expertise from all of these different fields to really put together cohesive designs. I don't know everything there is to know about flooring, but there is an expert, and we work hand in hand with the experts in each field to put together a great product for the clients. And we work with our clients to really find out what it is that they want and what they need in their schools, what it is that the students need to be successful. You know, that's the ultimate goal of every client we talk to. They are trying to put something forth that will help their students be successful. And so for them, we're a tool. You know, we are helping them to accomplish that goal so that they can help educate their students better. And so you have to use your resources and be able to communicate effectively with all those people and to compile that information into one cohesive design.
That's terrific. And you really kind of segue nicely into my next question about the types of career pathways that exist in your industry. So you had mentioned like you go to experts on flooring, and it seems like there's a variety of pathways that you can take within architecture or that might feed into the field of industry of architecture. So can you talk a little bit about some of those pathways?
So to become an architect, there's a couple of different pathways that you can go to get to that point. One of them is going to an accredited architecture school, and that's kind of the first step. It's a shorter path to becoming an architect if you go that way. Once you graduate, you have to have a mandated amount of experience in the different areas of architecture, and all of those hours are recorded with the state. And then there are licensing tests that you have to take to become a licensed architect. Or some people, some people in our office went a different path. We have one person in our office who was a teacher before they came to work for us. And so just from the route their career took, they've gotten the years of experience. And so their years of experience is longer than it would require if you went to school first. But you can still become licensed that route, and you still have to take your tests. But once you get into architecture, there's kind of a bunch of different directions you can go.
Yeah, absolutely. As you had mentioned, Kate, there's experts in all sorts of facets of what we put together. As the architect, we're in charge of pretty much everything. We use consultants for engineering and things like that, but ultimately we are the lead. And so, as Amanda said, we can't know everything. So there are experts, there are specialty experts in interior design, or even more specifically, in flooring, or even we use a consultant for door hardware. So you can, right? So yeah, you can really get down into the nitty gritty with expertise. And then, there's also things like construction management. Being an architect, you learn a lot about how things go together, but there's nothing like being in the field and seeing it go together. Absolutely. So yeah, there are things like construction management. Schools and other organizations often hire facilities people to help run their buildings, and that's another pathway that someone in architecture could take.
You could also,
that's excellent.
You could work for the city in planning, and then just within architecture, we obviously specialize in education, but you could do high-end residential like Callie tried, or commercial buildings, or historic preservation. And so just even the type of architecture that you do, if you're still being, kind of a dedicated architect, there's a wide variety of buildings.
Right, because every building or space that we see that's constructed had to have some sort of architecture connection to it at some point, whether it be years ago or now. That's really exciting. This is just a question of interest for me. So is there a proudest project or something that you've been involved with? Like once you were finished and you were like, wow, I was part of that. Is there something that really stands out in your mind?
Yeah, for me, it was working on Oneida Middle School in Schenectady, or Schenectady City School District. It was a building that had been closed for quite some time, and they had growing enrollment, so they needed to reopen the building, and we did a really extensive renovation. Unfortunately, we couldn't get enough money to completely renovate the whole building, but that made it kind of a challenge. What can we do with the budget we have to make this old building? It was built in 1920, to make it into a 21st century learning environment. And I think, we did a nice job, and we were able to just infuse some of the new types of spaces into this old building. And actually, after it was open, there was an article in the newspaper, and a student was quoted saying that they love the building so much that kids are excited to go to school again. And that was just the biggest compliment I ever could have received, we ever could have received. So that is definitely a project that stands out with me.
That's amazing.
I can think of a couple. The first one, I had the opportunity to work with Scotia Glenville, which is where I went to school. And so,
Me too.
yeah, and so it was nice to go back and be able to create, a beautiful space for the school that I went to, and be able to go and, walk around the schools and see them in a completely different light. Like, they gave me a set of keys for the entire school district. And I was like, are you sure I'm allowed to have these? Like, go anywhere you want. I was like, I don't think you mean that. I was like, I went here. It's like,
that's awesome.
And meeting with some teachers in a professional capacity that I had when I was in school. I don't think I can call you by your first name. It's a weird adjustment for me, but it was really nice to be able to go back. I was coaching at the time at Scotia, and so get to see, some of my girls from the field hockey team, get to see teachers that I had, and really just get to give back to the community that I grew up in, through what I'm doing now for work. And then I guess the second one would be Hudson Valley Center for Advanced Manufacturing. It was a really awesome project to work on. There was a big need in the community to train manufacturing employees, and Hudson Valley was really answering that need. And so by helping them create this new building, it generated, a lot of great buzz for the community. There's a huge connection with industry. The kids coming through the program were excited to be in the new space. They were, they have like 100% placement rate into jobs when they graduate. And so to be able to see that connection between our local community and the students there and the business community, and really help to be the catalyst to merge them together with their new building and help Hudson Valley be able to do that, was just amazing to be a part of.
And I think it must be so special to create spaces that foster an energy, like you said, to get people excited to make a difference. So not only are you making a difference in those students' lives, but it's that ripple effect outwards by creating that energy where they learn. So that's really neat. When we talk a lot about what the future of work looks like and skills that might be needed then, what do you see as far as skills that students might need in the future? Sometimes there's jobs that aren't even created yet. We don't even know that they exist, and they'll be happening. So what are some skills that you think might be the future of work?
I think, the skills that we look for are, of course, I'm sure you hear this over and over again, collaboration. It's students and folks that are able to collaborate with others. I think that's, a big part of any industry these days, as well as critical thinking skills. Even if you don't have the technical know-how, if you interview here at Mosaic and we can see that you're self-motivated, that you can work with others, we feel that we can teach you those technical skills. You can learn those on the job. So it's really about self-motivation, about the ability to collaborate with others and kind of think for yourselves and be willing to, take a stab at things and then follow up with questions. I think those are really the qualities that we're looking for.
And I think problem solving is one that I would add to Callie's. It doesn't matter what industry you're in or what the job is, whether it's, a job we know of that's been around forever, like architecture, or one that we haven't even heard of that'll be created in the next 25 years. There's always going to be a problem that you're trying to solve. and you have to be able to think through it. You have to be able to come up with creative solutions. And so, as architects, people are like, oh, you must be so creative. But in every industry, even if you're an accountant, you have to be creative. You have to be able to, track things down and think about the different ways the pieces go together and the different outcomes that you could get. And it does, it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. if you can problem solve, you can probably get your way through it. And like Callie said, we'll teach you the job specific things you need to know.
That's awesome. So when you look up at the word success, what does that mean to you, and how would you define that personally?
I think to me, and Amanda and I actually spoke a little bit about this when we were looking at doing this interview. You know, to both of us, it's really about being happy in what you do. It's really important that you try different things if you're not, if you're not really sure. Like I said, I left and I figured out that my passion is for education, and I came back. It's really important to try different things so that you have a job that you love, you have a life that you love. And to me, that's really, kind of success in your career. And then, success as far as what we do is producing a product that, like you were saying, it creates energy, it makes people excited, it makes students want to learn. That is a successful project. And then that also adds to the success of our career. That's what makes us excited to come to work every day.
That's great.
And I think just to add to that, like Kelly said, we did talk about it before, but if you can kind of be happy in the pieces of your life, if one of them becomes harder, becomes a struggle, you're having a tough day at work, or you're having a tough day at home, if you can go to work and you find joy in what you do, it helps pick up the other pieces so that you can fix what's wrong, and just being able to find happiness in the little things. I'll drive to work and I'll laugh at a bumper sticker in my car by myself, or sing a song in the shower. It's just little things that make the day go by faster. If I'm doing a task at work that I don't necessarily love, but I can put on a good song, it makes my day better. And
Absolutely.
Just being, you're not going to be 100% happy all of the time, but if you are happy the majority of the time, then I call that success.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So before we go, one last piece of advice to our students that you could impart.
I would say just keep trying different things. Be curious. Don't settle for something. You don't have to make up your mind right now. Explore the world, explore different career pathways, take different courses within your class or within your school. If there are, sometimes there's a whole wing of a building that some students have never even been in. And oftentimes schools are asking us to renovate those areas so that they draw students in. So students might become curious about those types of activities. So I would say just be curious, keep trying, keep exploring different options. There are so many things out there these days. And as we talked about, there are careers that don't even exist yet. So just kind of learning a little bit about everything can really help you to find your way.
I like that. Curiosity. It's great.
And don't be afraid of change. If you aren't happy, or if you find something that you're curious about that sparks a passion, and what you're doing isn't something that it brings you joy, don't be afraid to change what you're doing. When I went to college, I transferred after my first year. I stayed in architecture, but the school wasn't a good fit for me. It was a good fit for other people who were there. Someone else from our office went there, loved it, but it was too small for me. So I transferred schools, I went to another one, and I found a place that made me happy, that I got the education that I was looking for. And, sometimes it's changing what you're doing, changing a job, changing a school, or sometimes it's being the change for something. So if you don't like something at work, or you don't like something in your life, how can you work to create that change around you? So a lot of what we do at work, we have committees to get feedback on different things. And it could be as simple as, when I started, I couldn't remember the names of the people that I had been introduced to. Just too many people. It's like, man, I wish I had a seating chart. So I made a seating chart. and now it's given to people when they start. But it's little, and it's just like a small change to help people with something that I found difficult when I started. So don't be afraid to change, to make yourself happy. Don't be afraid to try to create change around you to create a better place.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you both to Amanda and Callie, and thank you to our sponsors, Martin Electric, Mosaic Associates Architects, and WB Games New York. We'll see you next time.
Thank
Thank
you.